Grand evening, everyone. It is Friday, June 19th, 2026. And it is also, as I've put for the title of this, officially tomorrow or right around 2 a.m. coming up. By 3 a.m., I would say, coming up, it'll be the total kinetic phase of World War III, week 17. So it's been 3, 4 weeks since I've done one like this. And we are going to start right here at the bottom. This is from Insider Wire, and also something about what the President of the United States said, President Trump. He invoked the Defense Production Act to boost munitions production and other things. Munitions, weapons overall, and likely vehicles. A while back, not too long ago as well, he did that with, I think, General Motors and Ford to have them get into a wartime production. So, looks like full wartime production, especially with the munitions there, as it says. So the country is going into more of a wartime production. That's President Trump preparing more for further war and escalation and intensification. That's what he's really preparing for, and that's why he's doing that, because he knows soon the US will be fighting Russia and China as well. And there's this great photo here, very relevant to the time we are all in now. Very relevant to the war and what is to come for quite some time, and what is to come after. Real physical assets. As you can see there's the anchor. The anchor, and he's grounded and rooted there. And it shows physical assets, gold, silver bars, some kind of farm with likely produce growing, and the chickens there, an actual fireplace with the fire and the wood storage under, the solar panels, all of that. Looks like water collected from rain and being used for cooking, boiling the rainwater. Looks like a bee's nest there. So honey and bees are very good resources there as well. It's what a lot of people don't think about. Honey and honeybees are really useful. Very good thing to have on land, with the garden and a farm and chickens. Those are all amazing. And looks like some kind of like a sandal. So sandals kind of like that, and certain footwear, very durable footwear, especially boots, are going to be really needed. And work clothes, I saw something about that even earlier today, about work clothes being very important for these times and the time ahead. That and military clothing and equipment, of course, military grade. So very, very good photo there. And you can't forget about the anvil there. Some people could blacksmith and craft things with an anvil and water near it. Then the jars of water, or yep, the water, that's what they're using to dispense water. Very good photo there overall. So this here from Nostra, right there at the bottom, is also another likely major reason why there's been this memorandum of understanding that is currently failing, or it has failed already. Trump says we are going to run out of oil reserves in 4 weeks. So that is very likely a reason why he went and signed the memorandum of understanding, which is once again failing, or it has failed already. The oil reserves are running out. So oil shortages are increasing big time. And especially when the reserves run out, oil will become scarce within a month's time, it looks like. And then the fertilizer is still also running out. So oil is set to become scarce within a month. So that's huge news there. The oil reserves are running out. Oil coming in is running out. And some reason, as I've recently talked about, the U.S. is still exporting oil, which is, in my opinion, very stupid and not a smart idea. And the U.S. needs to be stockpiling all of that oil and keeping it here in the U.S., not giving it out to other countries and places. A country and down to a person needs to help themselves and become very stable and self-reliant and discipline themselves before and trained before they can help other people. It's not a selfish thing. People need to become stable and be able to help others in time. That time comes, though we are quite unprepared here in the U.S. The U.S. is not prepared well as for the government. And they're giving out oil, one of the most valuable and needed resources at this time. They're giving it out, exporting it to other countries. Not a smart idea at all. Well, we need to be stockpiling all of that. It's a great thing to stockpile fuel right now, as it is less expensive than it has been in some time. And that'll last for maybe the next week before it skyrockets. The price of fuel is going to absolutely skyrocket when the memorandum of understanding officially when it's out there officially that it has failed and everything continues to escalate and intensify. It is doing that right now. It is escalating and intensifying, and there have been violations of the memorandum of understanding, uh, especially between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. There have been strikes there back and forth, even after the memorandum of understanding was signed. So we're going to get into that further shortly here. And then President Trump also threatened Iran in a nuclear way once again. President Trump said that any country that sells Iran a nuclear weapon would be nuked themselves, which it is very likely that North Korea has given nuclear weapons to Iran recently. That's probably another reason why North Korea has come up recently in the news. Then we have this huge bit of news here, as it says. This is from the Insider paper. This recording, this war recording, more accurately. An oil refinery in Moscow was hit by Ukraine. Ukraine has struck the Moscow region, especially their oil refineries, a few times in the last 3 days. So that is a huge escalation. Most of Moscow, that area was on fire. You could see the fire and smoke just about everywhere in that area. It was a huge fire that resulted after that oil refinery was struck. And Ukraine has continued to do so the last 3 days at least in a row. That has been continuing, and it is highly expected that Russia retaliates in a nuclear way on Ukraine. That is quite the general thought right now, that Russia may use a low-yield nuclear weapon on Ukraine to end the war over there, to try to win that war, and they will likely increase the nuclear yield, if Ukraine does not surrender after the first one that will likely be detonated there. That's really the general thought right now as for that. Then the Russian foreign minister, I think it's Viktor Lavrov, he said, and he's been very patient and he's very peaceful in nature, and even he said that words alone are not enough to respond to Kyiv's actions. Kyiv is the capital of Ukraine. Once again, it is very, very commonly thought now that Russia will use a low-yield nuclear weapon, at least one, on Ukraine, likely their capital, Kyiv. And they will likely tell the citizens there in Kyiv to evacuate, and then they'll do it, or they'll give them a timeline to evacuate, because they will use a nuclear weapon on either Kyiv or some other part of Ukraine. So that, I think, is going to happen. I think Russia will use a nuclear weapon on Ukraine, and it'll likely be their capital there, Kyiv. So then there's this here, very evident of how the people in Israel think. A lot of Israelis think the exact same way when it comes to war. The Israeli National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, he slammed the U.S. request to cease fighting in Lebanon, and he said that for every tear shed of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers should weep. All of Lebanon should burn. That's what he said. Sick dude, sick people. They're evil in nature. They're genocidal, many of them. They're very evil. They make evil decisions. They're willing to kill thousands, if not millions of people. He literally said all of Lebanon should burn. So that's many thousands of them. They don't care. They'll see an entire country and people burn before they take small losses. So that's the insane truth of how Israelis and likely most Jewish think. I know even a lot of the Hasidic Jewish people, a lot of them think very much that way. They think they're superior in a lot of ways. They think they're above most people, and they think that their country and their land is holy and better than anywhere else in the world because in their Old Testament and thousands of years ago, people wrote in there that it is, and they believe that very strongly, and they think they're like invincible as well, that they can't be destroyed or defeated again, which is one of the furthest things from the truth. If Israel is not supported by the US and NATO, they're a small country. Most of those other Middle Eastern countries would defeat Israel and likely destroy it. Iran would destroy it. Iran could destroy it at likely any time now since they very likely have nuclear weapons built by themselves and likely from North Korea. Moving on from that, speaking of North Korea first, even further here, it's also being reported that President Trump now wants to halt North Korea's nuclear program. North Korea has 50 or more nuclear warheads already. So provoking North Korea and trying to stop their nuclear program will result in nuclear weapons being used almost immediately. North Korea is just asking, they're begging to use those as well, especially if the US provokes them into using their nuclear weapons. There's nothing really that they would want more, especially their supreme leader, their dictator, Kim Jong-un. There's nothing more that he would want to do than nuke the US and Israel. And this here, in lighter news, this is President Trump's new Air Force One. He's been having it built for quite some time. It was gifted by, I think, Saudi Arabia. It's a very special plane. They had to redo pretty much the whole thing. It took a long time to do. It's one of the nicest and best planes in the entire world that there is. And it's finally or just about to be ready to be used as Air Force One. It is a very nice plane. The plane itself is mostly used for full and total luxury purposes. That's why it had to be made to be an Air Force One. Likely nuclear command and control stuff in there, um, other military type equipment. All of that had to be put in there very carefully, and the most of the plane likely had to be taken apart. Not one thing could be done wrong because one design flaw and weakness could bring the plane down. So it had to be done very carefully and very specifically, and it took a long time for it to get to that point, the point it is currently at now. Very nice plane there. In very concerning news, for the first time since June of last year, President Trump went to Camp David. That's a military base not too far from Washington, D.C., if I remember correctly. Though he is now at Camp David and he's expected to spend the weekend there as the Iran agreement is failing more and more as time goes on. Nothing is being done to fix it. Iran canceled the further talks in Switzerland. So there's no more further talks about that going on. And it's failing. The memorandum of understanding is failing. I'd say it's failed already. There's been enough violations for it to have failed already. So we can expect further escalation and intensification in this war, World War III, as we are now in the total kinetic phase of World War III, the 17th week of it. And it is intensifying and it is escalating. It is not ending. And how this war will likely end is in a nuclear way. World War III does not start with nuclear weapons being used. It ends that way. And we could all hope that all of those nuclear weapons are not used, because if every one of them are used, well, the planet would be very different itself, and well, the chances of survival would be very close to zero for humanity and everything else on the planet. So what'll likely happen is nuclear weapons will be used in a low yield and tactical way, and hopefully strategic nuclear weapons aren't used. And if they are used, they're used very rarely and very sparingly and on precise targets. Though tactical nuclear weapons are built for precision strikes. They're very precise and they have less radiation and less of a yield. And they can be used in a way where there's a lot less radiation overall. We also have, this is not on here, though we also have the Ebola in Africa near Congo and Kenya. U.S. troops have been deployed to that situation because I think that, if I remember correctly too, about this Ebola that's spreading over there, it's airborne. So we have potentially airborne Ebola spreading massively throughout Africa at this time. That itself, if that gets here to the US, oh my, It'll be far worse than the last pandemic, as it is a far more lethal pathogen, and this one spreads more easily than older strains of Ebola. As for the price of oil, it is down right now, as I've mentioned earlier, and it won't be for much longer. It's about $70 per barrel. That's the lowest it's been in a long time, months. The price of gold and silver is also down right now, so that's a sale. So if you're able to get gold and silver now, I highly recommend it. It's not financial advice, though I highly recommend it. I would do it. The price of silver is about $64 right now an ounce. It was over $100 an ounce not too long ago. Silver is one of the best physical assets to own. I recommend all physical assets, especially that were in that photo I've shown before. So please keep on preparing. Do not get complacent. This war is not ending. It is escalating. It is intensifying. And it is getting closer, very close now, to nuclear weapons being used. So please keep on preparing for all of that. And I very much recommend physical assets. And if anyone is in major cities right now, I recommend everyone to move out of those major cities to the countryside. And if they are near nuclear targets, you have to move far away from nuclear targets. Like there's a lot of nuclear silos near Wisconsin and Montana. And a lot of people think those are good places to live, though there are many nuclear targets in those places, and many nuclear weapons could be detonated over all of those silos, and then all of that fallout goes all around those areas. So don't live near major nuclear targets. You want to strategically relocate now as soon as possible. For the nuclear reason, and as for another reason, you don't want to live in a major city, because when it really hits the fan soon, the major cities are going to be places of total anarchy and chaos. People will be acting in a way that's not been seen in a very long time, especially when they're out of food or very low on food and water. People act like zombies. Zombies don't have to be zombies in the way that people think about or infected with something. People will act that way if they're just very low on food and water. And food shortages will happen soon as the oil shortages continue, because that's connected to the supply chain. When the trucks stop moving and when vehicles people use to go to work and use vehicles that are used on farms, when that all stops, then that creates famine and food shortages in the stores. And that will happen soon at this rate. So prepare for all of those things, and I highly recommend strategic relocation at this time. Also, please keep on preparing physically, mentally, and spiritually. Those three things are very important now, and they always are. So until the next time, which will be Sunday or Monday, likely Monday, I will do another live stream on here that is posted right here to X, as you can see, and to my YouTube channel. This will be right here on X and on my YouTube channel, and that's where the further ones go as well. As always, and I hope to see you all very soon, and love, light, and blessings to you all.